I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to your neighborhood real estate show. The hyperlocal real estate show where real estate professionals talk about the neighborhood you live in or the neighborhood you want to live in. This episode is brought to you by Homebuyers your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to homebuyeruniversity.net to get started online today. Hey everyone, I'm Todd Bookspan, and welcome to another episode of Your Neighborhood Real Estate Show. I'm super excited to talk about the East Valley here in Arizona, Tempe, Chandler, Gilbert, with my good friend Dustin Olive from West USA Realty. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
You know, it's exciting, right? Because we've talked on the phone before, and I always love the idea that we get to hang out here face to face. You know, we just happen to have people watching us or listening to us and a couple microphones in front of us. But it's always kind of fun to kind of dig in and get to know somebody. So I know, well, maybe I don't know. So tell me, I mean, I know you're a real estate agent now. I know you have a really successful business, but have you always been a realtor, or where did you start in life?
Yeah, no, I've been in real estate now for 7 years. I was in retail previous to the real estate industry. I worked my way through multiple facets of retail over about a 19-year period, and then found myself in a position where I just really wanted to control my own business versus someone else's business.
Yeah.
So I jumped into, we'll call it the family business. My parents were in real estate for a number of years, and they snagged me over.
They had to be excited.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so I have to talk about retail for a second, because you know I did retail, and I felt actually retail, on one hand, the business I was in, the bike shop business, didn't set me up for the mortgage business that I went into afterwards. But what it did do is it did help me to relate, and communicate, and build connections. But I also was frustrated with the, I have to be here at a certain time, I have to leave at a certain time. And you're kind of chained to that, and I had fun doing it, but not the freedom I had when I got out of it. So what did you sell? Am I allowed to ask?
Well, I was selling all kinds of things in retail. I started off in high fashion. I went into personal care items, and then I ended up my career in the novelty business.
Really? All right. That's so. All right. I won't go there. I won't go there. But novelty, I love that. And so, obviously, at that point, you said, "Hey, I want to have my own business," and you jumped into real estate. So how did that work? I mean, when you first jumped in, what were the big challenges you had, and what kind of were the successes that you also found pretty quick?
I'd say the biggest challenge getting into real estate from retail was managing my time. Mm-hmm. Going back to what you said earlier, is in retail you had a strict schedule. You had to be there from 9 to 6. But in real estate, you have no one telling you when to be at work and how long you need to work. So it was managing your schedule, being able to understand when to put the effort and maybe not to put the effort, and then just holding yourself accountable. That was probably the biggest challenge. But once that was figured out, then it was just a matter of building my pipeline.
Yeah. And
once you build that pipeline and you really work that sphere of influence, then your business can really flourish.
Yeah, that repeat and referral business. And what I love about what you just said about a system, because it's funny, I teach a lot of loan officers and real estate agents, and I always use that example. Hey, who here worked at McDonald's? And okay, well, did you have a schedule? And I was just in California, and I took a picture at Fatburger of here's what you had to do. Was the opening procedures were on the wall, right, and the closing procedures were on the wall. And I try to explain to people that if you're going to be successful in sales, you've got to have a schedule too. Because if you're just going to show up, wake up, do what you want to do, and then hope that something happens, it's not going to happen. But if you actually say, okay, this is what I'm going to do when I get going, and this is how I'm going to be productive in a day, then you actually have a business and you build a business. And I find that it's so hard for our listeners to differentiate someone who has a great website and does a good job on social media versus actually a true expert who actually understands the craft of being a great real estate agent.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, it's super easy to get up in the morning and just jump on the couch and put on Netflix, as a real estate agent, but you're not going to do any business, and you're definitely going to make your clients happy. Yeah. So you really have to hold yourself accountable to do that.
Yeah, it's I think everyone needs it, but no one wants it, is what I always say. And
yeah.
Self accountability is kind of tough. So you said, I know your clients love you, and I think that's really key. You said your sphere really is kind of taken over, and I know we'll talk in a minute about Prescott, because I know you got your start there, but really now you focus on Maricopa County, the Southeast Valley. The market's kind of interesting right now. I mean, what do you say when someone says, how's the market?
Well, I think it's more when people ask me about the market, they're not asking me the question of how is the market. Their initial engagement is, oh my gosh, the market's on fire. What's happening? This is horrible. The sky is falling. So the conversation now is more, let's calm down. Let's talk about what are your needs. Okay, are you buying? Are you selling? If you're buying, these are the things that we need to do. If you're selling, these are the things we need to do. And it's different than it was 6 months ago or 8 months ago, what have you. So the conversation now is more about what is your goal? What are the strategies that we need to take in order for you to obtain your goal? And then break those things down for each buyer and or seller. So that's kind of the new approach. Yeah,
no, I love that because I find that most people, when they ask the question, they've got a perception, right? Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, they probably got the perception from the news. And unfortunately, the news is national. It's not local. And right. So oftentimes they're hearing about what's happening in Kentucky when they're actually trying to buy a house here in Arizona.
Right.
And so you said that there's steps for buyers and there's steps for sellers. So let's just talk about buyers for a second. So what does that conversation look like right now? Like, what are the things that you're coaching someone through who's going to buy a house?
Well, the first thing is, and you know this from your industry, is let's get them pre-qualified. Everyone has an idea in their mind as to what type of home they want or, where they want to live. But until they get that pre-qualification done, we really don't know what we're working with. So let's get you in front of a lender. Let's get that pre-qualification aspect completed. Then we can sit down and we can talk about the wants, the needs in a house, the areas that you want to look at. What are the different steps then once we actually find a house for you to go through the buying process? And I have a buyer's guide, and I'm sure most agents have buyer's guides, but it's always nice to give them a reference, either go to my website or give them a hand-printed buyer's guide that will allow them to, at their leisure, skim through it. We're so accustomed to what we do, it's hard for us sometimes to slow down and talk to someone like it's their first time, because usually it is their first time. And we need to be careful that we're not overwhelming them with information, because we do that. We know we're very comfortable with what we're doing.
Oh yeah.
So giving them that reference tool, allowing them to go to the website and reference that tool when they've now stepped away from me, it calms them down, it solidifies the processes, it helps them regurgitate the information and devise questions that they can ask me later that now we can cover to make them feel comfortable about the process.
Well, that's great, because then they've been able to filter through the data to come up with the concerns that they have so that they can get targeted information. Because I think that as professionals, we all have the curse of knowledge. Like, we know what we know, and then we just show up and throw up all over them, and then it overwhelms them. And so I think that process you're talking through is great. Now, two quick consumer pieces I'll throw out there is, number one is, if you're listening to this, when you go online to those mortgage calculators, they're selling your data. You put your stuff in there, they're probably giving you the wrong number, and then they're selling your data. Yeah. So that's number one. And then number two, there's a great website. I'll do a video on. Well, I will do a video on this. So I'll put it up on the website as well. That's called optoutprescreen.com, where you want to, before you apply for any kind of credit, you want to actually go there and opt out. It'll let you opt out for free. It's a government-backed website. Don't be scared of that. You can opt out electronically for 5 years, so that when your credit gets pulled, they don't sell your data to somebody else. Because it's amazing, oftentimes people say, I just applied for a credit card and I got 17 credit card offers. Hey, I just applied for a mortgage. I had 27 phone calls from people trying to get me to get a mortgage, and they wonder why, and it's because their data is getting sold.
Yeah, you need to do a video on that.
So there we go. That's my consumer. I made some notes here. See that? I was making notes on you, and I would like your buyer's guide. I'm going to get a copy of that as well, because I'm always intrigued by that. So I think that's great that you're taking the time to educate them up front. You're obviously recommending they get pre-qualified. What are the fears your buyers are having right now that you're having to overcome?
It's interest rates. It's really interest rates. They start to see 6-7%, and they start freaking out, and they just don't understand how they can afford a mortgage. And it's really just, again, it's setting down, discussing what their goals are, talking about their financing, make sure that they're partnering with a good lender, and then let's really just look at the financial aspect of things. Let's look at the values of the home. 6 months, 8 months ago, we were literally throwing everything out to just try to secure a property.
Yeah.
We were giving up our firstborn, and we don't even have kids, right? Just trying to get someone to accept an offer. Well, now the interest rates have climbed, which was needed, and we needed a balance. But now there's more play between buyer and seller. So now we're not having to give up as much. Now we're able to ask for things. So it's being creative in the conversations that we're having as a buyer's agent with the seller's and seller's agent to try to get that buyer added value so that interest rate doesn't feel as brutal.
Yeah, I love that. So so really, when you say we're getting things from the seller, actually now can maybe get a seller concession if a property's been sitting on the market for a while, and you can use that seller concession to buy a lower interest rate.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's awesome, and I think that's where an experienced agent is able to come in and really guide a buyer through, how that works, why they may, instead of asking for $5,000 off or $10,000 off, hey, maybe let's get $5,000 in credit, and how that can really save them financially over the long haul.
100%.
So I love that. All right, so then the opposite is there too. I mean, you also, I know you represent a lot of sellers as well, and so sellers oftentimes right now, when I'm talking to them, they're just stressed out about the news and the market. So when a seller comes to you, where do you start that conversation?
The selling aspect now is drastically changed, and it does really take some coddling with your seller to make them feel comfortable with the process. It all really starts with making sure that as an agent that we're doing our darndest to price the house properly and having that conversation.
All right, so let me say it again. You have to price the house properly. Yeah. I want to reiterate that.
Can we just make that a huge announcement? Yeah. So anyway, price the house properly. So it's having that conversation with your seller that these are the analytics. These are the specifics as to why we came up with this price, and educating them on how that process works. We know in the residential world, and I do commercial real estate as well, but my primary egg is in that residential basket. Okay, there's emotion, and everyone feels their house is worth more than it actually is. So showing them where the data comes from. It's not just telling them; it's showing them, and then sitting down and explaining the strategy behind the pricing. But pricing it right is number one. Then number two is making sure that your presentation is strong. And what I mean presentation is make sure the house is staged properly. Make sure the house the landscaping is done. If you've got a pool, make sure the pool is clean. And just really setting up yourself for success as a seller. So it's price, it's setting and or staging, and then it's truly behind the marketing of the agent. Any agent can just throw a listing up on the MLS. We all have access to it.
I've seen those pictures.
Yeah, me too. The cell phone pictures. I could show you something that would probably make your skin turn green. But anyway, it's really about making sure you're marketing the property, and marketing isn't just putting it on the MLS. It's social media presence. It's videos. It's educating the buyers on a professional level as to why this home may be a good fit for them. Those are things that, unfortunately, the last 8 months to a year, we didn't have to do. We could just throw it up on the MLS with a cell phone photo, and you probably got 25 offers.
Maybe with no photos even.
Even then. So it's just a different world now. So it's more coddling and more conversation, but it all comes down, no matter if you're dealing with a buyer, you're dealing with a seller, it's all about education. You have to educate them.
Well, and I think I love the fact that you said it's not telling you, it's actually showing you. Right. Because I think in the end, it's the data speaks to it, and as long as you have the knowledge that you have and the experience that you have, then they can understand it if they're open to that. And I think we talked about proper pricing, right? And we kind of joked about it, but there's a lot of national news about price reductions, and I always say you have to look at things. Again, you can't look at what's going on in some other state, especially because here as of recent, you're reading that nationally inventory is up, but actually locally inventory has actually been coming back down for the last 60 days or so. According to the data in the Cromford report, and so I think it's just interesting that you have to have that knowledge and that perspective that you're discussing. And so my belief always is that a weak agent or an agent or a client who chooses an agent based on what they say they can sell the house for without the data is the one who's going to have the price reduction and be frustrated and actually will get less for their house because it sat on the market, because they had to have those price reductions because they thought they could get $50,000 more than what the data shows it's worth.
Absolutely. And just as I was explaining earlier about the buyer, I also have a seller's guide. So again, you're throwing all this information at a seller. And again, you're trying to give them as much guidance and education as possible. Giving them a reference tool to walk away from your conversation and to then reference helps them understand the things we just spoke about, or maybe it reiterates the things we just spoke about. Very helpful tool.
Yeah, I just love that, and I think that again, leading from that place of education, of providing the information, and also just helps them because again, a lot of people go to Google. And Google can give you great information, but it can also give you inaccurate information. I do think that's really difficult.
Right. Or those other sites.
Yes, that too. That too, where your data is getting sold, right? I mean, that's the number one thing I'm always shocked when someone says, I went to this site and it said, ask the listing agent a question, when it's not really the listing agent. It's just someone who paid to be there, and then they sold that data, at least to them and maybe to 3 or 4 other people, and they wonder why their phone rings, and it's just because they're like, well, I didn't want to bug you because it was 5 o'clock. And and so just remember, folks who are listening to this, that your data is getting sold, and just be really careful where you put it out there.
Yes.
So I think that's the key. All right, so we talked about the Southeast Valley, right? Mm-hmm. And so, one of the communities that you're passionate about is Stellar Airpark. So let's talk about that. Where is Stellar Airpark? What the heck is Stellar Airpark?
Okay, so there's actually 3 neighborhoods in we'll call it the Stellar Airpark area. There's Glenview, there's 12 Oaks, and there's Stellar Airpark. The Airpark and those other 2, Glenview and 12 Oaks, are off of Chandler Boulevard, south of Chandler Boulevard, between Rural Road and McClintock.
Okay.
So it's a really small geographical area, but there's a high concentration of homes. And the beauty of those 3 neighborhoods is they're all just a little bit different, even though they're all within pretty much a 1-mile radius of each other. The Stellar Airpark is truly that. It's a private airstrip, and there's homes on there that have 25, 35,000 square foot airplane hangars attached to them.
Oh, cool.
So there are people that.
So you see that plane coming in, you know where they're maybe landing.
You know where it's landing, right? And and there's they have a mixture of homes in the Airpark. So not all of them have the hangars. There are, we'll call it, normal homes in the area. But then 12 Oaks and Glenview are your traditional Arizona type style homes. Some of them have the more adobe look, and then you have those that have the Tuscan look. It just gives you a really good mix. People love the area because you are smack dab in the middle of the heart of everything that's Chandler. Intel, PayPal, the Chandler Mall, great school district. So you have a lot of people that want to be in that geographical area, especially if they're moving from out of state, which we know we have a lot of people moving from out of state. So it just helps having that diversity in the homes in that area to really make a successful business.
Well, yeah, you kind of mentioned it. I mean, it seems like it's more than a trifecta, but it's got all the things that people care about, right? It's got businesses nearby where you can shop. It's got businesses nearby where you can work, because no one wants to drive an hour to work anymore, right? I mean, that's kind of painful. And ultimately, anyone who's raising a family, school is always important, and it's always going to help resale value.
Right. And price point wise, you have everything in there from condominiums that start in around $375,000 in resale, all the way up to some brand new builds in the Airpark that are selling for $4.5 million.
Awesome.
So it's all within that one little 1-mile radius.
So how much do I have to spend to get a place to park an airplane? I don't own one or never will, but
probably $750 is going to be your low end.
Right, so that's not bad for being able to park an airplane out there.
You have to do a lot of work to the house.
All right. Does it have like a little radio tower and stuff? It must, to land people.
Yeah, the airport does have a radio tower, and has a gas station. And if you love aviation and aeronautics, every single weekend there is a private air show. It's not intentional that it's a private air show; it's that all the people doing their recreational flying, and you'll see everything from Learjets taking off there to World War II biplanes. It's super cool.
Awesome. Well, I don't even know how to follow up on that question. That's like such a cool thing. And how did you find that area? Just trial and error? Or?
Yeah, fortunately for us, my wife and I bought in that neighborhood. Let's see, it's been 7 years now, and prices were a lot different 7 years ago. That we were able to understand the neighborhood, understand what it all has to offer, really get to know the people that live in the neighborhood, and then the surrounding neighborhoods as well. So it was easy for me to become a market expert because I physically live in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to be able to have that quick jump from, say, my home office to a property that's just around the corner to show clients or that is a listing. So it's just a nice thing.
Well, and I love that. I know you're an expert of really the whole valley. I mean, do you so obviously that's your sweet spot because you're there, know it because you live in it. And then as you go out from there, it's still areas that you represent and work with clients from all over.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately for me, I grew up here in Arizona. My family moved here when I was very, very young. So I only really know Arizona, and being a local, having seen the topography change and just the population shift in Arizona over the last 45 years, it's it's easy to be an expert if you just know your hometown.
I love that. And so before I shift off of Southeast Valley, anything else about the Southeast Valley that you think is special compared to someone who might think, oh, I should live in Scottsdale, or I should live in Peoria or Surprise?
I just feel that a lot of buyers, especially those that are from out of the state, only concentrate on what they hear as popular tourist popular tourist destinations. And so they hear the Scottsdale and they hear downtown Gilbert. There are some really cool pocket neighborhoods in the Southeast Valley that aren't just Scottsdale, that aren't just downtown Gilbert. Talk to an experienced agent that knows the area. Tell them what you want, like why you like Scottsdale or why you want downtown Gilbert, because there are places that I feel can be found at a much more reasonable price that would fit the budget as well as fit the needs of the buyer.
I love that you say that, because I think oftentimes, people, they have what they like, but they only steer people that way, primarily because they don't have the knowledge of the other places. So I think having that experience that you have of growing up obviously makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
All right. So you did do a stint of real estate. You do some real estate up in Prescott.
Yeah. So when I first got licensed, my family owned the West USA Realty of Prescott franchise.
And where's Prescott, real quick, before someone doesn't even know where Prescott is?
Prescott's going to be north. It's like northwest of Phoenix. So it's only about an hour and a half from downtown Phoenix. It's a great little town, very historic.
It's not Prescott. I used to call it Prescott. I got corrected by friends who grew up in Prescott.
Whenever I do social media videos, I always have to say Prescott, which really is Prescott to all you out of towners, because people are like, "Where's Prescott? How do you spell that?"
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so it's a great, quaint little western town just northwest of Phoenix, and it's actually historically, not to get too far into the history of Arizona, but it actually was the capital of Arizona at one time before.
Never knew.
Before Phoenix became the capital. But anyway, I could go on and on about Arizona history. So anyway, back to Prescott. My family owned the West USA Realty brokerage up there, the franchise. Got my license. I figured if I'm going to be invited to Christmas dinner or the holidays, I probably should hang my license with them, and I did. And I spent 5 years hanging my license out of the Prescott market, but I always worked Phoenix and Prescott. It was good for me as a newer agent because it gave me a bigger pool to work from. Luckily, my family being from there, I knew the market, so I was a market expert even though I wasn't physically there all the time. It just gave me a better feel for the different avenues of real estate within the state. It's a completely different market, different topography, different types of housing. You have septic tanks up there. You have wells up there. We don't deal a lot of that.
Lots of manufactured homes up there.
A lot of manufactured homes. So it really teaches you, and it taught me the different avenues and aspects of real estate, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, it seems like for me personally, well, now I actually have family who lives up there, but for me, I always have loved it just as a great day trip or weekend getaway, and so it's a good second home place for some of you who haven't been up there, because the downtown is historic and really cool, great restaurants, just kind of fun places to hang out, and there's just great hiking around there. That's really what we've gone up there to do, is
Absolutely.
Hike and see stuff. And so I think most people are scared to drive up there. It's just not that far away, and there's definitely things that'll make you smile.
Oh yeah, the history of the town, and obviously in the summertime, just going up there and getting out of the heat for a couple of days.
Yeah,
it's well worth the trip.
Yeah, definitely a few degrees cooler.
Oh yeah.
I think it's always fun. So anything else then that I didn't ask you or talk about that you're like, oh my gosh, Todd, I can't believe you forgot to say this?
I just feel it's important that everyone understands. And when I mean everyone, it's not just agents and buyers. It's it's loan officers, it's title company, that it's important that we're working together through the transition of the market.
Yeah.
With where we came from and where we are now, it takes a lot more communication than we needed before. It takes a lot more patience too. So it's having that communication channel there for all parties to work through. And again, we're here to make our clients happy. Keep it calm, keep it fun, let's keep it exciting as well.
Yeah.
And if the end goal is just make sure that our clients are getting what they need.
Well, that's it. When you say keep it calm, I always say, I think keep it professional too. And that's, I know that you have that high bar that you've set in the way that you deal with people. And I think it's such a great opportunity. I mean, nothing better than I think helping someone, find their home and find their place and be part of the team that does it. I think that's just awesome. So I know DustinOlive.com is the best place to get hold of you. That's just like an olive, like you finding a
fruit.
There you go. It's a fruit. See, I was so yeah. It's just like you'd find an olive oil, or a martini, whatever is your jam. So just DustinOlive.com. They can search properties there. Yeah. It's going to give them access to actual data on the MLS, the multiple listing services. So they're going to get real time data, real feeds of what that is. And you said you can get your buyer and your seller's guides there.
Absolutely.
Any other place that people should follow you or reach out to connect? What's the best way to do that?
I mean, Instagram is always a great place. I get a lot of communication from people on Instagram, especially if they're referencing reels or videos that we're doing about the market or properties that are coming on the market. So my Instagram is all that olive. All that olive.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So I try to keep it fun. And so you can go on Instagram, follow me there, and we can talk, chat through direct messages, what have you.
Love it. All right, folks, you got to meet my friend Dustin Olive. That was awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Oh yeah, the history of the town, and obviously in the summertime, just going out there and getting out of the heat.
This episode is brought to you by HomebuyerUniversity.net, your free comprehensive guide to buying or refinancing your home. Click over to HomebuyerUniversity.net to get started online today.